Hi all. I just stopped on my way home this afternoon to have a look at a place called Temple Herdwick, which is at the base of Burton Dassett hills. Most of the village here, it was once a really thriving medieval village, this place, but most of it's gone now for a couple of reasons. The Black Death struck badly here back in the Middle Ages and wiped practically all of the population out, and also left the church that we looked at in the first part of this series in ruins for 100 years or so until it was resurrected. But this down here at the base of the hill, this is where Temple Herdwick used to be. There's still a few buildings around here behind me, but not really a village centre anymore. In the field behind me, down that lane, there are plenty of crop marks, very easily visible on Google Earth, and you can see where there were buildings, which is very important actually for our story about the Knights Templar in this area, because a chap called Ralph de Sudeley was a knight, a Knights Templar knight in fact, who went to the Bible lands and fought and lived in Jerusalem at Temple Mount for a while during the Crusades. And when he came back, he opened his own, he built his own manor house here at Temple Herdwick, I think in the field behind me, which is what the crop marks were, along with a Templar training camp. So Templars were a strange lot, you know, in those days, back in the, let's see, this would be the late 1200s into the very early 1300s. There weren't any proper armies really in England. The only proper trained soldiers were the Templars. But even when you look at the Templars, it's a little bit of an odd situation, because 80% of those soldiers were temple monks. They were knights, but also religious monks. Then 20% of them would be trained soldiers, and they'd fight together. They'd fight together, forming this Templar garrison. That building just on the corner where the car's just pulling up outside, incredibly, that is a remaining Templar building that goes back to the 12th century, well, part of that anyway, and that was their chapel. That was the Templar Chapel, and all around this area near it, which is now open fields, would have been where the garrison was, and the barracks for de Sudeley's Templar Knights. Interestingly, the chapel there, it was a barn for many years, just a cow barn, and I'd been past it lots of times and had a good look at it. Been turned into a house now, unfortunately, but it's grade 2 listed, and I had a look on the Warwickshire listed houses site, and that's on there as grade 2. It should be grade 1, I would have thought. They wouldn't have changed to a house if it ever was. But these opposite me are not mentioned. There's an old farmhouse over there that's probably 16th century, but you see these barns here? I think they're a bit earlier, and they look like they're similar age to the chapel to me. And I think some of those buildings, if not all of them, maybe just part of them, may also go back to that era and be part of the Templar estate here. Not on the listed building site, as I say. So that's another thing for us to investigate here. But it's interesting that de Sudeley, when he came back from the Bible lands, from Jerusalem, supposedly he bought, as we've spoken about before, he bought holy artifacts back with him, and kept them in the chapel there. I mean, to think that there may have been things of that importance in there is quite incredible, really. And they were supposed to be that important that in 1600, Elizabethan explorer Sir Walter Raleigh bought this whole estate. He bought all of the land here and all of the buildings. In fact, he had his wife pay for it, a lady called Elizabeth Throckmorton, who was very wealthy. She paid for it all and bought it, and he had teams of workmen dig up the grounds around the chapel there, looking for this Templar treasure, because he was so sure it was here. I remember 1600, that was only 300 years after the Templars themselves were here. So that was quite recent history for him, really. 300 years, not a lot in the grand scale of things. Interesting place. I'd love to look around in there. lucky people living there. So anyway, this is Temple Herdwick, and it's very important part of our temple quest here. Also, I got to say at this point, I think we may have mentioned it before, but one of the items he may have brought back, or it said in the history books that he brought back, was the Ark of the Covenant. I mean, it's just crazy to imagine that might be true. But if it were true, that's where it would have lived for a little while, in that chapel behind me. I haven't quite made my mind up about that yet. We'll see. That's just too much to comprehend at the moment, but we'll see how this investigation goes. Interesting stuff. There's still a lot to cover in this area yet, and already I've got to say that looking through, researching the history books of this area and coming here a lot, as I have done lately, I found out 4 things so far that haven't been mentioned in any of the history books and haven't been discovered by other people. So we're getting somewhere. I'm going to cover those in more detail later on. So it's sort of exciting stuff. A motorcyclist. Anyhow, I hope you're enjoying this series, and oh, please, if you could like and share this page, that would be great. And if you have any questions about this stuff that I do, any of these history programs, please just drop me a line, write to me at the bottom under the screen here. I'll be glad to answer. I'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.